Hi, Gemini. Welcome to your July 2019 Astro Update. It's Raina here. Well, Gemini, there's a lot of energy in the house that you rule, which is the third house. And so to me, it's always fortunate when you have a bunch of transits in 1 month and there's a real emphasis in the house that your particular sun sign or your rising sign actually rules, because you have an affinity with that type of energy. The third house that you rule is the house that's associated with the media, with teaching and learning, with, writing, communicating in general. And so the themes of these transits are going to be connected to those particular areas. And so it's definitely something that I feel is going to benefit you in July. So the other big story is that this is a month of eclipses. This is also a month of 2 new moons in 1 month, one of them being a solar eclipse, and a Mercury retrograde. And of course, you're ruled by Mercury, so that definitely might have an impact on you more than other people. I think I've asked this before, and people might have different opinions on that. So, sometimes they say that if your ruler is retrograding, that, it doesn't affect you the same way. But then I think I've even heard sometimes it's saying it affects you more. So who knows? So as the month begins, on the first of the month, Mars goes into Leo, and Mars is that sense of ambition, and it's going into your third house. And so there's a strong desire to communicate. And because Mars connects with ambition, there might even be some kind of professional connection to you and this particular house at this time. One thing I didn't mention or didn't emphasize is that the third house can be like, when I'm talking about learning, it would be possibly something where you get certified, where you get credentials in a certain area, and you may just be very geared into that for whatever reason, or you are hard at work on a book project, a writing project, a blog, things like that. On the 2nd, we have a solar eclipse at 10 degrees of Cancer. This is your second house of earned income. So there's also an emphasis on the second house, and that can be very lucrative because the second house deals with money, and a solar eclipse here can be very powerful new beginnings in the area of the money that you earn. So if you come up with this brilliant idea, with which Geminis, are known for, is their ideas, you could have multiple income streams possibly. One thing I wanted to mention about Mars in the third house is that it can also be conflict, and the third house can be neighbors or your siblings or cousins or aunts and uncles, I believe. And so there might be some kind of aggression associated with them, of wanting your own way, of just not seeing eye to eye. So that's great about the solar eclipse in your second house of earned income. And then the very next day, the planet that rules that house, which is Venus, moves into that house. So Venus goes into its own second house. That can be a good time for money as well, when Venus goes into its second house. So, on the heels of this eclipse, money could be coming to you for some reason. Usually with the second house, it's the money that you earn. I mean, that's the official title. But I have experienced it otherwise, where I just, the 2 planets that we might associate with bringing money there are Venus and Jupiter. I had Jupiter transiting my second house when I received, which to me at the time was a significant sum of money. relatively speaking. And that was in that second house. And Jupiter is a planet of luck and expansion. Well, Venus in the second is also connected with material benefits. On the 7th, we have the Mercury retrograde at 4 degrees of Leo in that third house. So Mercury is going to eventually, during this retrograde, go back into a late degree of Cancer into that second house. So there could be something that is going on with you, Gemini, that is connected to the money that you earn, but also something to do with an online situation. So perhaps you're trying to go off on your own, and yet you are still reliant on money from a day job or what have you, and yet you would like to be free from that and just do your own thing. So you might be thinking about these things. How can I do this? How can I make it happen? And for sure, because you have other beneficial elements there, like you have the sun in that house as the month begins, and you have Venus going in there early in the month, and the new moon there. It's just really kind of a great series of astrological events that really promote second house matters. And with Mercury retrograding in your third house, there could be contract issues. There could be, communication breakdown between you and a sibling that leads to, because again, I said that you begin the month with Mars in that house. And Mars sometimes can be pushy. And if something happens and you have a sibling who misinterprets you or a neighbor who misinterprets you, then there could be fallout from that. On the 16th, we have the lunar eclipse at 25 degrees of Capricorn. This is that other money house, which is the 8th house of shared resources. And so at the time of a lunar eclipse, which, by the way, is a powerful full moon, full moon, the sun is going to be in the opposite sign at the same degree. So on the 16th, at the time of this lunar eclipse at 25 Capricorn, the sun is going to be at 25 Cancer in the opposite house, which is the second house again. So that push-pull between my resources and our resources, or your resources, is definitely featured. And this can affect people in different ways. For some people, it may be kind of like necessary to look at your own resources. Maybe you're with somebody who's a spendthrift. And I don't think a lot of Geminis are, in my experience. Gemini is not one of those signs. I was going to say I don't know if I would offend anybody. Do you think that you're kind of cheap? And I'm not saying that in a derisive way. I think that Gemini, because you're a mental sign, you tend to not sometimes even be grounded with material matters the way the sign that precedes you, Taurus, is, because Taurus rules that second house, and it's all about the Benjamins for Taurus. I know, that's so cheesy, but I had to say it. And so Gemini is really a sign that is connected to intellectual pursuits, and it's like a Gemini person might even forget to eat if they're on the internet doing something, because you're so absorbed in ideas and communicating. And I'm not mad at you. I think that I totally get where you're coming from. So I can see you kind of like reviewing something that is connected when Mercury goes back into that second house, how it relates to what your pursuits are. Because when Mercury goes retrograde in the third house, this is about your ideas and your mind itself and how it connects to your bank account. And you may feel that sense of like, well, whatever. I mean, you may not even feel like you have a sense of connection with the second house. And actually, the sun is in that second house until the 22nd. So there is a strong emphasis on finances, as you probably have known by all this Cancer energy. But then on July 22nd, the sun goes into that third house, and that is that sense of you coming into your own because you rule that house. So it's like the sun being in Gemini in a sense. And on the 27th, Venus goes there as well. And so Venus becomes connected to profiting from ideas. Gemini is known as a clever sign, so you could come up with an idea that has long-lasting ability to, keep you financially in the black, so to speak. Isn't the black the good in this case? To keep you like solvent. And, with Gemini, it's usually multiple, at least two. They say Gemini likes things in two, and so that would include maybe having two jobs or two income streams. And it's always about having more than one so that you're never dependent on one source for your income. And so I feel like you're experiencing financial abundance, or at least the trigger for it, because with the solar eclipse, we can at least say that the seeds are being planted for that harvest. And in the third house, too, is really stoking up the ideas. A lot of Geminis may be good writers, and you might find that that is your artistic outlet, is writing. And it doesn't have to be a novel. It could be a blog. You may find some way to profit from your writing in an unusual way. I was just thinking of Charles Dickens, and Charles Dickens was actually an Aquarius. But Aquarius is an air sign just like Gemini. And he used to serialize his writing, where he would just sell it to the public like piece by piece. And I think, in those days, there wasn't much competition for entertainment. Of course, Charles Dickens is one of the great writers of the last 200 years. So it's, it's not that he wasn't, just totally brilliant. But in those days, reading fiction was such a big deal. And nowadays we have so much competition. So writing is something that I am so happy to see still exists. People are still making money at it. And you may find your own little way to make money through writing with Venus in that third house. Venus in the third can also smooth things over between you and siblings, since you have Mars there and the source of potential conflict. On the 31st, Mercury goes direct at 23 degrees of Cancer in that second house. So chances are you have sorted through some type of an issue and you have made your decision. And this does directly involve your finances. And you also have a new moon on the very same day at 8 degrees of Leo in the third house. So again, that second, third house connection. What does that mean? Does it mean that you are somebody who is definitely starting something new that connects writing with making money, making a profit? So I'm hoping that that is the case, because that is one of the careers that is indicated for Gemini. Okay, that's what I have for you, Gemini. I hope that you enjoyed this, and if you'd like a personal reading, the link is below. I'm offering 17% off all of my readings through July 1st, on the cusp of that solar eclipse in Cancer. Okay, take care. Bye.